some waiting list. Altogether, his calculation is that China is having already 110 gigawatts of nuclear power capacity. So it's not true, but it will be true by 2031 or 2032. So usually before that, Chinese didn't want to say we are the leader. No, we are just modest partners. And now things have changed in this regard. They also cover all technologies from high temperature reactor, which is operational already, it's not a paper project, to SMR, which will be connected to the grid early next year, the first in the world, probably, inland SMR. They have Gen 3 technology, they have Gen 4 technology under construction that will be connected to the grid maybe within 2 years maximum. And they are making researches on fusion and on all aspects. They have all kind of research institutes. So yes, they are very strong somehow. Regarding investment, they have invested $34 billion in nuclear energy last year, and which represents 40 and something percent of the whole world. So yes, they are a very important partner, we would say, in the nuclear industry today. So that's all. The rest is all details. But the question I want to ask here is, with the new behavior, new attitude, new concerns also about nuclear power, where is China? Does it play a role or not? My feeling, if I give you a very short answer, my feeling is that the future of nuclear power does not depend on do we like or not coal, do we want small or big reactors. There are, for me, two conditions. I should say that as a conclusion, but I don't know if I will have time to go to the conclusion. So it's Chinese success. If China is really successful in implementing its program, regardless of some delay, 2 years, 3 years, it doesn't matter. But yes, if China is successful, first. Second, if Japan restarts. And if these two conditions are fulfilled, I think there is a future for nuclear power. Now, if China fails somehow, or if Japan does not restart, does not go on restarting, then I think it will be whatever is optimism regarding the new technologies, it will be bad for the nuclear industry in the world. So that said, Mr. Terazawa said that the picture has changed. Happily, I would say, the picture has changed. I will come to that. But I will, these small chapters, I have split my presentation in small chapters, going through, yes, coal, data centers, new commerce countries, and uranium and enrichment. Yes, the picture has changed. We are no more talking about, we are less thinking about CO2, and more about security, energy security, which I was waiting myself for years, that when will we stop to talk exclusively about CO2, which is just a good side effect of nuclear power, but is not a central target of the nuclear power. So, but still, it remains, the old picture is still there, because it has impact on political decisions. Here I have stated the last two COP meetings results. The COP28 did not talk at all about nuclear. We, in the World Nuclear Association, we were physically present in the COP28. We had a small booth with some presentations, modest enough in terms of attendance, and but officially, nuclear power was not even not mentioned in the main statements. And but yes, triple nuclear by 2030. That was said. And you must give more money. And what you do is not good. Global stocktake was negative. We are going, or we left the 4 degrees path, but we are still on 2.8, which is much above this target of 1.5. So then we went to the COP29 last November. And we also did not really mention officially the role of nuclear power. We just say that it could be considered somehow. But the main thing was to say we must give more money from 100 billion to 300 billion a year to the developing countries. This was agreed, but regardless of the nuclear power itself in details. However, we still believe that nuclear, we in the World Nuclear Association and in the IAEA, we still believe that we should promote, in these instances, we should promote more nuclear power. It's why we made this tripling nuclear energy by 2050 kind of policy that we asked many countries to sign. In last year, you have these 6 countries that were added, but what is that? Kosovo is even not a country in the eyes of China, for instance. And El Salvador, I don't know, it's maybe 2 million inhabitants, something like that, maybe less. And Nigeria is still far away from nuclear power. Turkey is nuclear power. Kazakhstan is yes, uranium country. But altogether, added to the 25 original countries which signed the year before, that makes only a handful of countries that are supporting the tripling of nuclear. And where is China? China is not in the picture. And Russia is not in the picture too. And maybe it's the reason why China is not in the picture. Maybe it's because Russia is not. So China doesn't want to appear in international things if Russia is not. Anyway, we feel behind this declaration, we feel the hand of, to be honest, the USA. So I was saying that myself by officials from the Chinese government that they would sign, but it smells too much American. However, of course, they participate to other instances and declaration. Some elements of the declaration are very clear, The standard things about reducing costs, and we know that. And yes, promoting small modular reactor, deepen cooperation, which is not very sincere. This idea of deepening international cooperation means, in the eyes of those who sign, open your country so that I can sell you my reactors. It's not true cooperation. Yes, the most important thing was to end reliance from nations. What are these nations? This is Russia. And relation with Russia. So under these circumstances, how can China, sign it? Because China feels that I am the next on the list, It means also I am excluded somehow. And the sustainability principle is just to say we don't decide about the most adequate solution. Is it to have storage of spent fuel or to have reprocessing? They did not enter the detail to keep the two existing solutions today, which is the US one, storage, dry storage, and the French one, reprocessing. Japan is still working on. Regarding this tripling nuclear, we see already that by tripling renewable is already very difficult, in fact, and we are far from. By 2030, it's true the target is very close, but tripling nuclear by 2030 won't happen, in fact, except in China. When they had a target of having 102,000 gigawatts of renewable capacities by 2030, and which was much more than tripling what they had 3 years ago, and they did it in a few years. So now they have already 1,340 gigawatts of renewable capacities. But the rest of the world can do it. Of course, we can always implement here and there wind farms and solar farms, but they are not really operational. I mean, they have, as I have said here, they are stuck waiting to be connected to the grid because it's too much at once for the grid. Besides this COP and climate things, there was an energy summit organized by the IAEA last year in March, where China was there. And China said that, yes, they had, as I have written here in the quote from the Vice Premier, Mr. Zhang Guojiang, China has adhered to the rational, coordinated and balanced nuclear safety strategy. It's all the same words about safety. And Mr. Grossi from the IAEA saying that this summit shows that nuclear taboo is over now, and they promoted again small modular reactors. So that's good international picture with China at least being there. And regarding the media and public acceptance, it's true that all what happened around these COPs, around these summits, around the news about nuclear rise, and now people are shifting from this kind of protest to acceptance of nuclear power somehow. I don't think it's very important. I agree that in Australia, for instance, we were just saying that yes, they are very careful and they want the opinion to agree on the. But we ask people to agree on, for instance, an airport construction if they live around the airport, yes. But we don't ask the population if they want an airport. So why should we do that for the nuclear power? Local acceptance is extremely important. Large, overall, whole public acceptance, I think it should not be paid that much attention. All the more, as I said yesterday, that in general, public acceptance is much higher than governmental acceptance. Anyhow, it's all this positive atmosphere makes these countries now willing to join the nuclear community. And this is governmental, it's not public acceptance thing, it's governmental approval of a future nuclear program. Now this must be financed. And they found a way to finance by asking certain banks to participate to a pledge, to the pledge of tripling nuclear. So you have a list of the banks which signed this pledge, but no Chinese banks, of course, and no Russian banks. Mr. Grossi said that global investment in nuclear energy must increase to 75 billion to 125 billion per year. That's good. Good wishes. And we have also, to support the nuclear development, we have some green and sustainable bonds around the world. I have quoted here some example. And still, but of course, as it was said, without the participation of the World Bank. And I have been myself in discussion with the World Bank. They accept that we present them the advantages of nuclear, but that's all. Yes, they don't want to include that in their programs. However, maybe China has other ways, than relying on these private banks and on international institutions like the World Bank. But you see, the amounts are quite important, several hundred million each time. What can support nuclear development also is this national taxonomies, sustainable finance taxonomies, which it was very hard to make them accept in Europe, in EU, to accept the nuclear inside their taxonomy, which excluded nuclear for many years. And we have implicit acceptance of nuclear in various, I have a list here, in various countries having taxonomies. But these taxonomies are all very different. They are not measuring the same things. They are not approving the same kind of thing. But anyway, they are all these countries are considering, from the governmental point of view, positively the development of nuclear, from Philippines to China, you see. So the question is here: with all these conditions, are we entering a new era? Yes, Mr. Birol of the IEA said that yes, many countries, growing interest in SMR. What means growing interest? And Mr. Grossi says that, as you said, Mr. Terazawa, that energy security is again on the table, definitely. However, and I have set here a few examples, you can read them quickly, in some countries that show that there is a real practical interest in developing nuclear. However, our CO2 kind of enemies or competitors say that no, yes, you can decarbonize, but now what counts is the speed. It's not the fact that you decarbonize. It's do you do that fast enough? So we are blamed, nuclear, we are blamed to do it slowly. I will not more comment on that. Who is able to triple nuclear? You know, the EU, I'll go fast to the conclusion here. In fact, all the analysis assessments say that EU would evolve to 150 gigawatt capacity by 2050, which is what? Which is plus 50%. It's not 3 times more. So the tripling will not happen in the European Union. Maybe because of retirement of plants. Yes, we may build more than 50 gigawatts, but still the final figure will not be that high. Now in the US, CO2 played a very important role until this kind of declaration by the DOE to aim to have plus 200 gigawatt of net nuclear energy capacity by 2050 through a pathway which is here 35 gigawatt operating by 2035 and a pace of 15 gigawatt per year reached, not in 2035, but reached slowly by 2040. That looks nice, and we can ask where will they be put, and where is China in comparison to the US? In fact, the preliminary study, as I've written here, is 60 gigawatt of capacity in existing plants, and all the rest nearly is in coal plants. And I like this image because this is if we want not to have coal to nuclear transition, but a coal to nuclear replacement, it's a little bit different. It means we have the nuclear reactor in the middle of the city somehow, close to the city. And this is an important obstacle, I would say. So altogether, yes, that could make plus 269, less those who will be retired, then it makes roughly plus 200. Okay, but on existing site, it's only 60. Building in a nuclear reactor where is a coal plant is very, of course, attractive because it decreases the cost by 15 to 35%, and it brings jobs and all good things. However, yes, there is this specific limit of we talked this morning about EPZ. Even if US government and NRC says we approved, Mr. Muskel, we approve, we agree with EPZ, but there is an IAEA specific approach to this EPZ. And the IAEA is having working groups on SMR, is promoting, yes, research, evaluation on safety by design. They say, yes, there is such a thing as safety by design, and this safety by design is claimed by the SMR designers or nuclear power reactors designers and so, but they do not agree on that. I had last April in Kazakhstan, I met a representative on the IAEA, and she said, "No, we don't trust safety by design." And which means what? Which means for them, what is important is the quantity of radioactive material, regardless of all the protections, be it a reactor, be it a container, be it whatever. What is the quantity of your nuclear radioactive material? If it's counted in petabecquerel, that's all. That's big. That must be 20 kilometers away, or 5 kilometers. And an SMR definitely has less material, radioactive material quantity than PWR. It has 5 times less. But 15 petabecquerel divided per 5 is still 3. So it's still much beyond the limit considered by the IAEA. So it's why any half of them in their eyes is dangerous. So we have to work a lot to convince IAEA. IAEA guidelines, it's only recommendation. So a country, the US can say, we have our NRC approval and we agree on that, and they can, China can do the same. China is also considering to approve an EPZ which is smaller, which is 5 kilometers, less than 5, it's 500 meters around the small modular reactor. They are considering that, but they did not fully implement that in their regulation. Because IAEA, even if it's only recommendation, usually they are followed. What is China concerned by this replacement of coal plants by nuclear reactors? In fact, you see that apart from the COVID-19 period, the coal construction is still growing in China. It grew in 2023, it is growing again in 2024 with 29 gigawatts which started construction. So we are far from removing the coal plants in China. Where are they? Here is the projects in 2022, but the projects are where are the coal plants in general. And so can we replace or can we put in these coal plants some nuclear reactors? Maybe. I will show you this map which was drawn by SPIC colleague, and which shows the market in China for the nuclear reactors, so depending on the usage of it. So you see along the coast you have the power supply from north to south, in the north in desalination in addition. And so this power supply is where are the existing big, large plants. And that's mine maybe. And so this will go on having large plants. But it's the same place where our coal plants. Coal plants are also there. Now for replace retired fossil fuel power. You see there is some market here, but small enough. And heating supply, which is the largest part in the northern China, means replacing not coal power, but coal heating, which is different. And provided you have a new, what they have, by the way, project, new heating type of reactors dedicated to only strictly heating water, up to 90 degrees or 110 degrees, depending on the designs and projects, then this will be very useful to decarbonize and to provide heat in all the northern region. And this now can be, this kind of reactors can be put up to 15 to 20 kilometers. Of course, there is a loss of heat along the transportation, the steam or the water. But now with new technologies, they are able to lose as few as possible of degrees. Originally, they were 1 degree per kilometer, but now they are much less than that. So this will not be replacing coal plants, but will be new things to replace coal usage. Now the second thing, the second market is data centers. Yes, data centers are, I will not detail that, they are supposed to be, to support the rise of small modular reactor particularly. But when we look at the capacities of these data centers, they are growing also. So there were very few now in the past having more than 10 megawatts, but now they are around 100 megawatts, and plans are to put them up to 1 gigawatt capacity. So are they really the target for SMR? Yes, for part of them, definitely, but it's questionable. Because if the capacity grows up, then the big plant would do it more than the small plant. I'll skip that. I will also skip that because we have no time. China is supposed to be small today in compared to the US and growing also slowly in terms of data centers. But China has its plan to develop a strong data centers capabilities, moving them from the west side to the center and east side. They named that east capacity and west calculation somehow. This shows that the power in this it will shift from the pink province to the blue provinces, and the power will be more used in the eastern part of China. But it might be provided by hydro as well. Moving to the east for China, moving the data centers to the east is getting lower temperature because of mountains. And so the temperature is lower, so it enables better cooling of the data centers. The capacity of data centers is supposed to grow up to 600 terawatt-hour in 2030 in China, which will be at that time nearly equal to nuclear production. So it means that the growth in data center in China is really threatening in fact the role of nuclear in the whole grid, because it will swallow up all what the nuclear brings. And the nuclear power will not contribute to decarbonize, just to follow the bigger load demand of electricity. I will skip this. Yes, but I did not Anyway, I will skip this, the bet on SMR. You will have that afterwards if you want my presentation. China, I was just... Yes, Microsoft, in fact, says that they will use the 3 Mile Island restart, which is different from Oracle and others. And they maybe are more reasonable in some sense, that they want to use large reactors. Chernobyl, nuclear reactors, okay. I will go very fast through this third aspect of where China can develop, is outside China. They have this Belt and Road Initiative. The Belt and Road Initiative considered that 30 reactors could be sold outside China by 2040. But in fact, when we look at the countries, we've seen Indonesia this morning. Indonesia has some interest, of course, in developing nuclear power, but is in discussion with, was in discussion with China, but is no more discussing with China. And they are considering this Torcom, South Korea, Rosatom, and what about Kazakhstan? Kazakhstan is close to China, but Kazakhstan is discussing about VVR, which is Rosatom reactor. Of course, there is another element of the nuclear power which is very important. Oh yes, I should finish now. Very important is the uranium. And in Kazakhstan, you know that very recently some ownerships, stakes of Rosatom in, not Rosatom exactly, TVA, but yes, Russians in the Kazakhstan mines were taken by the Chinese. So yes, they are developing there from the uranium point of view. Thailand is having projects with China, and Thailand is itself having 10% of 2 reactors in southern China, not very far from Thailand, and they have an electricity purchase agreement also on that. And they are developing research reactors with China. Vietnam is betting on Russia now, and probably won't turn to China in the coming future. Africa, yes, I would say there are several agreements which were signed, in fact, in 2015. In 2015, China went out and signed a lot of agreements, and all these agreements vanished. I mean, they are still there, but they were not renewed, they were not implemented. And because of, yes, sanctions, because the UK decided to kick out China from the Hinkley Point program, and the Czech Republic refused to have China participating to nuclear bids, etc. So they have, but they still have good contacts in Africa, and they bought recently, they are to buy, no, it's not finished, but the mines which are in Niger and which were owned by the French, and they are considering the purchase of the same mine. We'll skip that, sorry. China financing methods abroad, it's interesting because it's not, a very small part is grant by the Chinese government, the big part is loan. But what is interesting is this loan is not very low rate, it's average 3%, but the terms are very flexible. You have a 3 to 5 years grace period, and up to 6 years, yes, up to 6 years of grace period, and very long term, 17 years in addition to these 6 years. So, in fact, nobody can rent that. And they don't need to have this support of the international banks I have mentioned earlier. They do it with this very specific approach of very long-term loans. And I will nearly finish with that, just saying that China is very busy by itself in China. And even though the electricity is growth is decreasing, is still following the GDP. GDP is 5%. Many people say, oh, 5% is very low compared to what it was, 11%, 12% in the past. But 5% today is represent, for instance, in investment more than 11% 20 years ago. So 5% is the target, official target of the government. So, and if you take out of this 5% the decrease in the real estate, for instance, the rest of the economy is growing by much more, by 7 to 8%. Yes, this is the map of the Chinese reactor. The growth of nuclear power, which is around 60 gigawatts today. I have stated here also the coal use is still growing, and it's why the share of the share of nuclear in the electricity is lower this year than it was last year. It was very close to 5%, and it's only now 4.7%. Because the demand is growing, and because the coal is growing, and because solar is growing. I will skip that, we have no time. And just one word about uranium resources. We should more talk about that, because without that there is no nuclear power development. And we in the WNA have calculated, evaluated, in fact, a decrease in the world or stagnation in the world uranium resources. So where is China in this? China is having a lot of resources, but of low grade. And there are 1.7 million tons of uranium could cover 60 years of operation of 200 gigawatt, but that's all. And if their target is up to 500 gigawatt, China has anyway to import 60% of its uranium. Today, its uranium represents only 15% of its needs. And their target was to have 1/3 of locally produced uranium, and they cannot have it. So the other solution is to buy mines outside and to buy uranium outside. So even if they say that they have discovered a lot of new uranium deposit with, I don't know if it's true or if it's a communication type of thing, but they say they have discovered the largest deposit in northern China. So they buy mines outside. These mines are producing 3.3 times more than Chinese-made uranium, and the rest is imported from Kazakhstan, from Australia, and from Canada. Enrichment is also a key, particularly with the potential rise of SMR in requiring highly enriched uranium, I mean HAEU, high-assay low-enriched uranium, is the best word to say it. But Chinese, yes, they can play a role in that. In fact, Russia today is supplying, for instance, in the US, 27% of enriched uranium. And it represents $2 billion for Russia, what they are selling outside Russia. So can China take a share of that after the new restrictions? Today, US is going on buying Russian uranium, enriched uranium, but in the coming years, maybe in 2028, they would cease that. So there is a small window for China to sell enriched uranium to the rest of the world. And they may take this opportunity, even though they are themselves in need of that, but they could have a commercial opportunity for a short time. As they may have an opportunity to develop the fast breeder reactors that are in the construction. The Gen 4 meeting, which took place at the COP28, we see here the US and UK signing an agreement, and they erased Russia. And it might be an opportunity for China to become more important in this fast breeder, promotion of fast breeder, it's good, yes, fast breeder. It could be, even though they are blamed by the US media that their fast breeder is allowing the nuclear weapons problem. It's not true, but they try to limit the importance of these fast breeders, and that will be one of the most important solutions in the future. I skipped the public acceptance because it's so important. And the conclusion, yes, that China nuclear power is on the rise, and it will be multiplied by 5 by 2050, not by 3. The call to nuclear is an option, but more for heating cities. Data centers might be a drive for nuclear power in China, but probably today it's more a drive for hydropower. SMR, yes, can take advantage of this so-called renaissance, nuclear renaissance. However, there is the question of the order book. The key for SMR development is how big is the order book? If you have 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 orders, it doesn't justify the modular construction. If your SMR is 100, we made a calculation with Cambridge University, if your SMR is 100 megawatt capacity, then to justify financially it and build a modular factory, you need to have 100 units ordered. If your SMR is 200 megawatt capacity, then you need only 10 to 15 units ordered. So how can you have all these units ordered at the same time? Who will order that at the same time? Maybe only China, in fact. New nuclear countries are not as attractive as they were now for China, even though the strategy still exists, that they want to sell on the Build, Belt and Road initiative. And the competition on uranium is an important thing that could help China to get some share on this market. And the question is not much public acceptance as the acceptance of China and Russia in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Francois. Thank you very much. Any questions you have, if you could take them up with Francois over lunch, and if you could